Hi folks, Travis Truman here with another sanity-enhancing episode of Truth Theory. Now today I'm going to be looking at heroism and cowardice from a truth-based perspective and giving examples of each. And commonly when society says someone is a hero or a coward, that these claims have got no legitimacy whatsoever. The fact is, folks, all mainstream loyal citizen slaves of any society live a lie. They support an endless stream of societally sponsored child abuse. They undertake mass murder of demonized foreign human beings, and they use countries like America use cruise missiles and all sorts of cowardly attacks to launch mass murder attacks and kill a bunch of children just for no sane and justified reason. Right there, folks, you can see there's a lot of cowardice by society being done on behalf of all citizen slaves. And of course in other ways, folks, we also see a lot of cowardice in the way that minorities and people with disabilities and so on are singled out and systematically victimized by society, all the while society denying that it is doing this in order to keep up its illusion of decency. But the biggest and the most cowardly act, the greatest example of cowardice possible, is in fact the refusal to face up to the forbidden truths of life and human society. That is the ultimate act of cowardice, and conversely, the ultimate act of heroism, what makes you a real hero, is facing up to and embracing the forbidden truths of life and human society. That's the true definition of what a hero is. And I can honestly say, folks, that I, Sir Travis Truman, am an absolute bona fide hero. Now, let's have a look at some of the other things that society does, okay, that makes it absolutely cowardly. Now, I said before that society targets people with disabilities, and one of the examples that I'm going to be talking about today is the Judge Rottenberg Center in America. Now, this center imprisons, abuses, subjugates, dominates and tortures people with extreme disabilities, labelling them spastics. Now, folks, it's important to realise that most of these so-called spastics have actually been put into that condition by extreme early-term child abuse, both physical blows to the head and emotional and psychological abuse and neglect of development and proper socialisation. Not all, folks. Of course, there are some genetic disorders such as Down syndrome and so on, but it doesn't really matter because these are very vulnerable people being systematically abused. So now, it's almost only fitting, folks, okay, because of the dehumanisation, marginalisation and cowardly abuse of all so-called spastics, that our example of heroism comes from this man, Martin Bryant, the Port Arthur gunman. Now, Martin is responsible for the Port Arthur massacre event. I've got no doubt about that, folks. I'm not going to get into a silly debate that it was all a conspiracy and he didn't do it, because that's just a load of rubbish. But he had every right to do it. What he did at Port Arthur represented truth-based justice. He had been abused and victimised his whole life, in many, many ways. Martin Bryant was bullied, beaten up, teased, tormented. He was ostracized. He was stripped of his natural self-love to the point where he desperately needed company. He psychologically needed to be liked and have company and have friends and people to talk to him, and he was left isolated and ostracized by society. But of course, one element is that he was considered to have a disorder, an autistic disorder, and therefore he was deemed to be a public poison container. People would always victimise and abuse Martin, and it's not just because he may or may not be personally vulnerable, it's because society condones and sponsors it so strongly that they can always get away with it and expect support. At the same time, society threatens and demonises Martin, that if he was ever to acquire a weapon or do something to defend himself from these constant unjust attacks, that he would be subjected to extreme punishment and brutalization for daring to defend himself against the socially decreed assaults under the bullying label. Now, the fact of the matter is, folks, Martin Bryant was a tortured victim creation of society. He was mentally ill. He was even impregnated with parts of the insane God myth. We know this, folks, because he used to believe that the house he lived in was haunted with something he called ghosts, which is just a further way that they have tormented and victimised poor victim Martin. So, one day, Martin realised that he would always be ostracised, abused. It dawned on him what a victim he was and how outrageous and how unjust his treatment was from society. He faced this truth. He embraced this truth. And then he went forward and he got truth-based justice at Port Arthur. And this, folks, at this time makes Martin Bryant a bona fide, glorious hero. He was brave to face those forbidden truths, and he was up against an entire society. Those people that he shot had more of a chance than poor victim Martin was ever given by society. He was up against the entire army that constitutes society. So, therefore, to label Martin a coward, especially when you go overseas with cruise missiles and all sorts of weaponry and slaughter children for no good reason, is absolutely hypocritical, insane, deranged, and lie-based. And really, folks, the point is, you created this man and his victimhood status. He was born innocent and pure, and instead of looking after him properly, you victimised him. You put the rage, the hate, the frustration, the confusion into Martin. And it's just a shame, a sadness that perhaps today Martin has sunk away and he is no longer facing these forbidden truths. I don't know that for sure, folks, but certainly he doesn't have his self-love. You have taken your hero and done your best to victimise and destroy him because you're a bunch of cowards. That is what you are, folks, as a society. All you loyal mainstream citizen slaves are gutless, pathetic, deranged cowards. This has been Travis Truman with another sanity-enhancing and heroic version of Truth TV. I'll see you next time, folks.